Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and in this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And first we're going to start with the north. We're going to start with the Kupiansk front line. Some sources on the ground are saying that the Russians also started a local offensive operation, probably some kind of operational operation in the vicinity of Kupiansk, and as a result of that attack, of those actions, they managed to advance and to develop their bridgehead. For now, we still haven't received any updates about the directions or the territories that the Russians managed to capture. Maybe this is another part of a media campaign by the Russians when they're trying to suppress and to break the Ukrainian spirit. Now we're moving to the south, and today the Ukrainians published very interesting video from the vicinity of Kislovka and Kotlarovka, these two small settlements. There's nothing important, nothing interesting, just another geolocation, and according to this video, we see that the combat line and the front line is very close to each other on this front line. And basically on this video we see how the Russians and their drone operator, who was trying to make some kind of intelligence with drone above the settlements like Klishchevka and Kotlarovka, about these two settlements. If you remember, during the previous weeks we got a lot of video confirmations how the Russians were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions in these two settlements. And mainly just for the previous week we have at least 3 video confirmations of destroyed ammo depots in these two settlements. So very interesting situation will follow, because also if the Russians did started offensive operation in Novoselovka and in the vicinity of Karmazinovka and in the vicinity of Kupiansk, anyway sooner or later we're gonna see active clashes and active actions from the Russian side on this bridgehead as well. Now we're moving further to Karmazinovka bridgehead, to this area. As we discussed during the previous 2 videos, the Russians started offensive operation in this area, trying to push the Ukrainians as far as possible, trying to dig in deeper on this bridgehead. Today the Russians published another video how they destroyed another Ukrainian armored vehicle that were located on the road. This video is geolocated, and probably this is the 3rd video in a row of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles exactly in this sector, on this territory, on the west of the main Russian bridgehead on this bank of Zhiribets River. Yesterday we got video of destroyed armored vehicle a little bit to the west, then we got the same video a little bit to the north. So at least 3 armored vehicles were destroyed during the previous 48 hours. It was video confirmed and located in this area. So one more time, this is another confirmation that probably the Russians managed to develop the bridgehead further to the west, and the situation with the yellow cloud in this sector is not correct. But for now I'm not going to change the map, because we need not just the confirmations of destroyed Ukrainian vehicles, we need more video or photo confirmations of Russian advances to the west. For now we will keep as is. Now we are moving to Torskoye area. I have updated the map, as most of the Russian mappers have updated. And by the way, the Live UA map also have updated their map, and the Live UA map shows even better progress of the Russians. According to the Live UA map, if you follow this map, the Russians established control over this small salient, but this is probably not a small speculation, because there are still clashes. To tell the truth, the territory, this area, this salient is covered with fog of war, because the Russians claim that they captured at least this area. The blogger Ryba reported that, but without any video or photo confirmations. When talking about the settlement Torskoye, the Ukrainian squad, the Ukrainian forces who published those videos about clashes inside the settlement, have erased that video from their Telegram channel, and other sources, Ukrainian sources, started claiming and saying that was a mistake, that the Ukrainians by mistake started bombing and shelling their own positions and so on. So basically the Ukrainian side started using all different types of way, but how to hide this piece of information about the fact that the Russians managed to penetrate the Ukrainian defense orders and almost got the western edge of the settlement, basically have almost got the settlement by the name of Zarechna. For now, anyway, this territory still is covered by the fog of war. It's very difficult to understand, but as I understand, in a day or in a two, we're going to understand everything. And if the Russians did really manage to enter the Tarskoye settlement on the eastern edge, as I understand, we can start counting not even days but hours before the central part of Tarskoye falls, and then we're going to see finally the video and photo confirmation of this situation. The Russians continue bombing and shelling the Ukrainian forces in Kremenaya forest. Today the Russians published another geolocated video how they destroyed the Ukrainian howitzer somewhere in the vicinity, somewhere between the trees and fields of Kremenaya forest. This video is geolocated. As you can see, according to the latest three video confirmation geolocated that we received, the Russians started massively use drones on the entire line from Kislovka to Kremenaya forest. Just for the previous 12 hours, we got three video confirmations of usage. On Kislovka, we got the video from Ukrainian side how the Russians got the combat line. We got the video of another destroyed area of armored vehicle in the central part of this front line and in Kremenaya forest. Now we are moving to Klishchevka area, to Artyomovsk as well. Today we got a lot of very interesting updates. The Russians are saying that there were very fierce fightings in Klishchevka and in the vicinity of Berkhovka. Russian military expert Ryba reported that as a result of fierce fightings, the Ukrainians managed to maintain their bridgehead in the vicinity of Berkhovka, and the Ukrainians managed to develop their bridgehead in the vicinity of Klishchevka. Also, he told us that the Russians launched a counter-offensive operation, at least in the vicinity of Klishchevka, and as a result of that counter-attack, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to recapture the lost positions. This is the opinion and this is the analysis of Ryba, but other Russian sources reported that the Ukrainians, as you can see, have already also updated the map, and according to other experts and mainly according to the forces and soldiers on the ground, the Ukrainians managed to redeploy a significant number of forces in these forests that located on the north of the main Ukrainian Russian fortification in Klishchevka, and then the Ukrainians, using the forest line, managed to enter let's say the northwestern part of this fortification, and currently there are very heavy clashes. Furthermore, some sources are saying, and the Ukrainians and the Russian confirms this piece of information, that Ukrainians managed to capture this part of fortifications, and not just capture, but they managed to dig in deeper in this area, and currently there are heavy clashes exactly for these fortifications, and currently the Russians haven't managed to force the Ukrainians to step back from these positions as a result of counterattack that they've launched recently. So this is the situation about Klishchevka. About the Russians, a few things. As you know, they have redeployed some reserves and reinforcements in this area, so the Russians are not going to step back. As we remember, there is the forces of 41st, of 72nd brigades, and also the Special Unit Akhmat where the units of Special Unit Akhmat also were redeployed in this area. The Ukrainians from their side trying to bomb and shell Artyomovsk, and the Ukrainians continue their preparation of the bridgehead, an offensive operation in direction of the southern part of Artyomovsk. Today we got another video how the Ukrainians where they published a series of videos. The 5th Storm Assault Brigade published series of videos how they were bombing and shelling the Russian high floor building in the western part of Bakhmut, which confirms that this building is still stay on their positions, haven't been fallen under artillery strikes, and that the Russians use this area as the nice positions to control the Ukrainian movements in the residential area in these fields. For now, the situation is stable, but it's getting closer and closer to a critical for the Russians. Now we're moving to Avdiivka. We haven't received any updates about this sector of the front line. The only video that we got, the recent video, the freshest video, is that the Russians during the previous night of the local time, made massive attacks against this settlement. This, as you can see, there is explosions, and all those explosions that you can see on the video, it's a very small video, this is the quality we have, show us that the Russians were bombing and shelling exactly the eastern part of Avdiivka, and maybe this night there were another attempt of the Russian forces to storm the Avdiivka fortifications. As we know, the Russians managed to establish operational encirclement, and probably they were trying to develop their progress during the night. For now, we haven't received any updates about the results, so let's wait a little bit. Now we are moving to Vremivka tactical bridgehead. As you can see, that's operational pause. There is operational pause at least on this sector. The Ukrainians took a small time for regrouping, and as I understand, that time is coming up, and soon the Ukrainians will relaunch their attack, and the Russians understand this perfectly. So the Russians also can see and can track the Ukrainian movements of Ukrainian forces along the combat line, and as the Russians managed to discover the accumulation of Ukrainian forces, and the Russians started bombing and shelling very actively the Ukrainian positions using the flamethrower systems, trying to attack and destroy the Ukrainian stormtroopers that the Ukrainians are planning to use during the upcoming offensive operation. On this video, we see how the Russians were bombing and shelling Makarovka, and mainly the accumulation of Ukrainian stormtroopers. Now let's move and let's talk about the Bradley Square. Today we got also very interesting updates. The Ukrainians' attack probably have been stopped completely. Some Russian sources reported that Ukrainians during the night and during this morning of the local time made another attempt to attack, but they were defeated. And the Russians also published the video how they were bombing and shelling the Ukrainians' armored vehicles in the vicinity of Novodanilovka using drones. As you can see, this is very far from the combat line, and as you can see, the Russians do have possibilities to send their drones so far to the north, and as you can see, the Ukrainians don't have like necessary equipment for the electronic warfare, and the Ukrainians just basically can't shut down the drones that can fly even above the territory that is under Ukrainian control. Furthermore, the Russians published another video of Ukrainian attempt to attack with heavy losses from the Ukrainian side, and as a result of those clashes, more armored vehicles were destroyed. But this is not the worst thing for the Ukrainians. The worst thing is that the Russians today, this morning, published another video. Probably this event took place exactly this night. They managed to capture completely the repaired and fixed Bradley. You see this Bradley, it's working, and they are saying that they don't need even to evacuate. They can just sit inside of the Bradley and start moving along the roads. So basically, this video confirms not the fact that Ukrainians were completely defeated on the north of Robotyne, but basically this video confirms that the Russians currently have possibilities to send their forces there and to make a clearing operation among the fields, to check the vehicles, and probably to capture more prisoners of war who take a decision to surrender and so on. So basically now we see the clearing process of the Russian forces on the fields on the north of Robotyne. It's very difficult to understand the real positions of the Ukrainians, but I believe that they were forced to step back, to retreat towards more reliable positions on this bridgehead as well. Very interesting updates are coming from Tokmak, and some Russian sources are saying, very reliable sources are saying, that after the United States of America announced about sending cluster bombs to Ukraine, a few hours later, the Russians reported that there was a first usage of cluster bombs, and the Ukrainians were attacking Tokmak. So for now, it's of course not 100% sure information. Maybe this is another media campaign against the Western countries, against their media, against the press, and so on. But let's say that after a few hours later, after the announcements of sending Ukraine cluster bombs, we got the first usage of these types of weapon in the vicinity of Tokmak. So we'll see. The Russians haven't provided us any numbers and any results of that strike. The only thing that the Russians noted that there was few waves of attack. As a result of the first wave, the Ukrainians managed to deal some damage, probably to ruin some buildings. The Russians sent some forces to start de-ruining that area, trying to evacuate wounded people and so on. The Ukrainians waited a little bit, and as soon as the Russians brought the the rescue squad, the Ukrainians made another attack using the same cluster shells. So that means that the Russians also have right to start using cluster shells against the Ukrainians. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.